what I recommend is once you actually have the plugin installed, the first place you really want to go to is under your settings. So click on your settings icon here in the top right, which is going to be over here, the gear icon. And then you're going to see settings, language, and a couple of other options. Let's talk about that for a minute. The first one's going to be backup. If you've made any changes or modifications to the plugin itself, say you have a specific way you dodge and burn, or perhaps maybe even over here under the user section, you might have a couple of different options that you've saved and you want to save that somewhere, this is the place to do it. Once you click on backup, you can select all, including your language settings. You might even have some recipes or presets that you've made. Here's where to do that, and just click on save as, and then it will allow you to save whatever you have in your plugin. The next part is import. Import's going to be the receiving end of that spectrum. So if you have somebody who has already created something for the plugin or their workflow and settings, they can send that to you and then you can import that directly. This is also great if you've done this for one computer and you want to send that over to someone else as well. You can save, you can take your saved file and send that to someone and they can import it into Infinite Retouch for them to be able to get everything that you have done on your end, which is super cool. The other great part is the language area. So the language is really important because when you click on this, you have a few different options. And at the time of the recording, we have 3, but in the future, if you watch this, there might be a couple of other ones. But let's say that you have done everything in English. Let's say, for example, here under the Retouch tab, you've come over here and changed any of these settings here. And if you're not familiar with how to use Infinite Retouch, we're going to get into all of this in other videos, so please check those out. But this is just a very small, simple example of modifying something so you can see some of the differences of what happens when I change over my language. So let's say, for instance, over here in Dodge and Burn, I right-click on curves and access the options menu. Let's say, for example, I've changed my method of curves to 50% gray layer, and I leave everything else as standard. Maybe perhaps I even edit it now because I've changed the method. I call it 50% gray, and I don't need to hit save or anything like that. I click on back, and you can see it's changed here. Now, when I go back to my language area, if I change this over to, say, German, it's going to give me an option to language only or reset. Now, the main thing is that if you click on reset, as it says here, a language change can replace all settings if you hit reset. So if I hit reset, it's going to change whatever I had done to the curves back to the standard method. Now, if I click on language only, what happens is even though I don't understand German, it's going to come over here. And if I click on 50% gray, it keeps that there. However, if I go back and go to English and then say language only, because this was reset all, that's how I know. And I go back and I click on it, it's still going to have my settings saved. However, if I go back into my language area, and let's say I click on just English again, because it's still going to come up with a prompt, and I hit reset this time. Now, when I come back to my retouch section, it resets that as well. So that's also handy when you might want to have everything in German. And if I come back here, you can see it has that in German, but it also resets to the standard method of dodge and burn with the curves. So what I personally recommend, the workflow that I recommend is over here. Let's just go back and change to English for a second. I'll reset all. What I would recommend is before you do anything, click on backup, back up your settings, then change the language. And personally, start with language only. And if that doesn't really satisfy what you're going for, then reset, and it will reset your settings as well. But I personally, think that if you have a lot of settings, the language only probably works best. But if you're trying to redo everything in that specific language, then reset it all. But most important, definitely back up everything. And for whatever reason, if the panel isn't working correctly or you would like to reset the entire panel, click on reset all and it starts as if you've actually installed the plugin for the first time. And then aside from that, we have edit user presets, which I think I mentioned earlier, but you can, sample and get an idea of all the presets that you have. I don't have any currently at this moment, but this is where you would modify them and edit them if you have them, including the sharpen and grain presets and some of the other ones. So that's it. And aside from that, this is the place to go to for backing up, importing, changing languages, and resetting the entire panel altogether.